Hey, that's Christopher, and you're listening to the super fantastic, reasonably above average racing spectacular. Hey, how about the Coke 600, Indy 500, 1100 miles of racing? Been and gone now, so here this is the crucial portion of the schedule for the Monster Energy Cup Series. Some pivotal races coming up in the month of June. You have Pocono, Michigan, Sonoma, Chicago. Some diverse action in Daytona coming up first week of July. Interesting how the points are starting to shake out. You're starting to see who's really a championship contender and who's going to be fighting for their lives in the summer months to make the playoffs come September. So it's starting to shake out. Very interesting weekend. And both sides in Indianapolis and Charlotte. So some good racing action. Some very good news for Bubba Wallace. Worldwide Technology stepped up and in conjunction with the Victory... a nice segue to that. In conjunction with the Victory Gang Junction Count, going to sponsor and cover the season. It's impressive for Bubba Wallace considering some of the peaks and valleys and trials and tribulations he's been through on and off the track this year. It's good to see that news item float across the airwaves, the news waves, wherever you heard it. It's still great news, and it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Bubba Wallace, pretty good accounting for himself in the All-Star race. Had a pretty good car in the 600. Finished and reflected, but it's a pretty snazzy paint scheme, that orange vanilla Coca Cola paint scheme. The Coke paint schemes didn't have exactly the best night, did they? This going to happen in the Austin down there, and the Coke Zero Sugar car gets caught up there at Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson looks like he's back to his dismal ways, unfortunately, after that little bit of a momentum builder with the All-Star win. Gets wrecked here, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Martin Truex Jr., winner of the Coca Cola 600. This is his second 600, and that's within a 4-year period. He is a 2016 winner. Didn't quite have the dominant car he did back in 16. Only leads 116 laps. So there's a lot of interesting. Not only about the win for Truex Jr., there's a lot of interest. He had an interesting night, and we'll get into that in a moment. So, like I said, 2 in the last 4 years. He's his 22nd career win overall. Ties him now with fellow champions Terry Labonte and Joey Logano. I was talking about that with a very, very, very good, one of the best people I know, Miss Stacy, and saying about NASCAR. I was talking to her, and we're just talking to him sometime in passing, like a conversation there, and about how NASCAR is the field's so thin, but I feel the competition is at its very best right now, and how some of these drivers who, didn't quite measure up when some of the legends were there or the history makers are starting to run really well and are creating their own legacy. You have Truex Jr., 22 wins. If you would have told me back in 2013, 2014 that Martin Truex Jr. by 2019 would have 22 career victories to his credit, I'd have said it's not likely. This is a guy I thought that, well, we've talked about this story, and the story's incredible, and it ties into where he is right now, and there is a Jekyll and Hyde scenario here. Okay, so Logano and him are champions, modern champions just recently. Really good to see them. And even Logano, if you would have said 10 years ago, this guy, you knew he was going to win a lot of races, but it just kind of fizzled for Joe Gibbs, and then all of a sudden he gets a new life with Penske. And these guys are closing in, man. They're tied now with Terry Labonte. We know Terry Labonte is a 2-time champion, Hall of Famer. These guys are making up some ground, and they're moving up the ladder pretty quick. And Logano and Truex Jr., 2 the brightest stars in the sport at this time. So this goes back to an incident. I'm not going to take away too much from the win. I think anytime a driver can win, that's where the focus should be turned to. Not so much the off-track bullshit sometime that goes with NASCAR, but this is a dick move, man. Late in the game, late in the going, David Ragan and Front Row Motorsports had a shot at this. Legitimately did, whether they're on worn tires or not. They're pulling out a gamble. Same thing Austin Dillon did in 2017. Nobody shits on that. Truex Jr., if that's really true, the radio communication came in that his team communicated to the Front Row team to move out of the way. Fuck you, Truex. I'm sorry, but if people are upset, but fuck you, man. Who the fuck are you this is competition, folks. And just because David Ragan is not up front every week, dominating the headlines, monopolizing them actually at that. Who got so sick of that big three last year? This year, it's the same story. It's great to see that competition. But if you want a feel-good story that sort of softens the blow that's been this season to some of the purists out there that are sick of Penske, sick of JGR, I'm not sick of it. I think this is fucking excellent. You got two organizations, it's like a prize fight. You got two heavyweight competitors going toe-to-toe, punch week after week. But you sprinkle in a little bit of unpredictability right there. And he upsets City, David Ragan. He's going to make the playoffs. I don't know what people, you know what? I'll say it. I'll say it for you fuckers out there who will shit all over this if he had won the 600. Good for him had he done it. You're going to bitch because his two victories, to his credit, were on the restrictor plates. Daytona, Talladega. Well, any fucking fool can win there, right? You just got to be in that lead draft in the end. I don't give a shit, man. That would have been a great story. Front row snuck their way into the playoffs at Chris Buescher in 16 at Pocono in the fog. Nobody said much. And you know what? Let's be honest. As I said, I'll say it. He's no fucking prayer when the playoffs start. And that's not anything on David Ragan. It's just the actual facts, right? This is legit facts, folks. Front row will not be able to sustain a 10-race championship battle with the likes of Hendrick, Penske, JGR, even Ganassi for that matter. JTG Doherty, for Christ's sakes. Let's put them in that category. They're not competing with them. Fine, but it's a great fucking story. It's great for the head. It gives the guy confidence. It makes this... It's a victory. It goes down in the record books that he's won the Coke 600. And who the fuck are you, Mr. Overnight Success, couldn't buy a fucking win from 07 to 13, that you're going to tell this guy to move? I get it. Slower car, but he's on this. Let's say something. He wasn't on the lead fucking lap. He's competing for the win, asshole. That's where you say to yourself, it makes you not like Truex. It really gives it sours the milk of human kindness that you built up for him, that admiration because of the story with his partner and overcoming cancer, and everyone was rooting for this guy a couple years ago, and now you have a very good seasons, couple string together some great seasons, and you brought Furniture Row into prominence. You made a single car team from Denver, Colorado that maybe nobody gave a shot at or even gave a second look at years prior to a legit elite team in the sport, and you win a championship for them. Okay, you know what? You've earned your due. You are a superstar. You are going to continue to do great things. You could add another championship to your resume by the end of your career. Couple more, even if that mattered. The way he's running at this point, he's almost 40 years old, but he is looking good. But to be so egotistical and self-centered that you're going to tell David Ragan to get the hell out of your way because I've got a faster car and you're holding me up, that's bullshit, man. Complete other bullshit. But that's my take on that. I'm going to get hot about it. We'll continue to talk more about Truex's win. So third win of 19 now ties him with Keselowski and teammate Kyle Busch. So there's a battle now starting to shake out here that these look like your three legit title contenders. Virtue, they got the most wins of anybody in this series, but there's so many people on their heels with 2 wins. All from that same organization. Danny Hamlin, he's got 2. Chase could get 2, Elliott, for Hendrick. Joey Logano, he can get himself number 2. It's creating that backlog, but these 3 drivers clearly are in a league of their own at this point. Keselowski represents Penske, the sole Penske hopeful, but I don't know if he's the best Penske car. Didn't have a really good finish here at Coke. Logano seems to be still, despite the fact he's got only 1 win, seems to be the top dog at Penske. Virtue's the most recent champion. But I just think he's looked a lot better than Keselowski, despite Keselowski's got 2 more wins than he does this season. So he's 1 win away from tying his win total from a year ago, Truex Jr. So this is mighty impressive. And I know, he's going to get better with this is the crazy part. He's whining about David Ragan, and maybe that they'll take one away from him. He's going to win a heck of a lot more races than David Ragan. He's already has, but he's going to win a shitload more this year. This is his 3rd win in the last 5 races. He's dialed in. Whatever they're doing on the 19 car, they're getting it right. And lots talked about Kyle Busch and the history maker he is, and is seen still as the top dog at JGR. But Truex Jr., what he's done recently, and I'll be honest, I'm gonna say it. I was wrong. I thought this was gonna be a tough road to hoe for this team. I thought they were going to struggle out of the gate. They looked like they were in the first couple. They even, despite those run-up finishes, they didn't lead a lot of laps. It looked like they were up there, but they weren't quite on par with the rest. And in this scenario, I just went back to the struggles that Furniture Row had last year. He hadn't won since Kentucky in July until he claims his first win this year. So was the mindset? Now we're going to talk a lot. I'm not going to talk so to death about Furniture Row. We had so many conspiracy theories about what really went on there. We'll never know. But it just seemed like when they announced that they were going to be shutting down, his focus was just, it wasn't there. But the team here, this is virtually the 78 car, the 19 car. So it's still really competitive and making a lot of headway. But 445 laps led in those races in the last 5, compared to 14 in the first 8 of 19. That's pretty impressive. He had 1 win through 13 races in 2018, and he seemed to peak, and then he went on a hot streak around this time last year, and that was it. That was the end of Furniture Row. So he peaked in the summer months. He won 3 of the next 6 races following the Coke 600 last year, and would not win again in 2018. That's not going to be the case this year. This team is taking a legit swing at the title. They look like the best team with Chase Elliott. I'm going to say, if you look at the last little stretch from Dover, Chase and Martin Truex Jr., I think, and throw Alex Bowman in there too, have had the best cars. They look like the best drivers on the circuit. What's next for this team? I don't know. He's could make a run at history. You have the 3 wins. He's got some really good racetracks coming up. Could be a year where somebody breaks that mark. And I know he had a fabulous season in 17. Mirrored almost Jeff Gordon's 1998. Looked that good. Does he have that in him in the 19 car? And if so, this is going to be a force. This 19 car is going to be a force for the next how many years he's in this car. I just don't see him slowing down. And that's bad news for the rest of the competitors, because this guy, when he's on, man. He is. I think it's time to give him his just due. And I've said that. I'm not mad at it. I just don't like the circumstances that followed this race. And the situation with David Ragan, I think it's in poor taste. It's not a good look for Truex. You got to put yourself, you were that guy 10 years ago that maybe people said, get out of my way. You're not competitive. You're laps down. You're in junky equipment. And then again, you're going to go back and you're going to say, is this the real Truex Jr. that we were seeing now? It's just maybe he was in shit equipment. DEI was on the back end when he started to get good there. And MWR, well, MWR was an interesting, it's a paradigm, really. I find their whole existence was like a kaleidoscope of chaos, but an optical illusion because they had some really good cars as well. And were in hunt for a championship. But you put them in the front row, and then JGR invest in front row, and they're off to the races, man. So he's the defending winner of the race in June, coming up to Pocono this week, the Tricky Triangle. He wins there in 15 and 18 in the June race. So if you're the other competitors, you're going in to this race knowing that JGR is so good at Pocono lately, and they're going to, we'll talk about that later. Denny Hamlin's won there a bunch of times. Kyle Busch has been really good there as of late. Erik Jones looked good. Daniel Suarez records his career best last year in this car. That's the runner-up. So a little bit of foreshadowing. How good can Truex Jr. be on Sunday afternoon at Pocono Hills? I think he's going to be pretty darn good. Michigan, this could be a bit of their mulligan here in this next stretch of races. He's got 3 top 5s in the last 8 races at Michigan. It's not highly impressive. He's never won there. He's never really been good there. I think you're not overlooking that, but who knows? This guy's gotten so good everywhere that could be his breakthrough, Michigan. And this is when he finally captures the W there. Sonoma, he won there in 18, defending winner. He's 2 wins there in the last 6 races he won there with MWR, 13. And at Chicago, he's got 2 wins in the last 3 races. Realistically, this guy could have 6-7 wins by the time we hit July. And I know that's a bit of a stretch. He's got the 3 now. But if he wins the next, goes on this really remarkable streak. And we haven't seen that. We've seen it 3 times last year where a driver won 3 in a row but could make it 4. It's Truex Jr. make it 5. And the possibility of that is very likely. And JGR has won 8 of the 13 races in 2019. They're on pace to break a record. The most they've ever won as a stable collectively was 12 and 16. That's 12 wins for them. And also 12 and 13. They're going to shatter that this year. It is only race number 13 coming up at Pocono. They've already got 8 wins. You don't think they're going to get 5 more by the end of the year? Maybe more? JGR is just having its best years in its whole existence, and it's been around since 93. But you look at even the Hall of Fame news last week, the coach gets in. Tony Stewart, Bobby Labonte, the organization's first 2 champions, get in to the Hall of Fame. JGR is not only dominating the present, their past is also making headlines. And JGR, Christopher Bell in that Xfinity series, it's a good time to be a part of this organization because they are absolutely the toast of the town. And David Ragan, we looked at it. A big shout out to David. He leads 3 laps late. We're going to segue to that now. JGR is going to shatter that record. It's called for what it is. But back to Ragan. So he's second on the final restart. He's trying to get that win. He hasn't won since 13. That big upset at Talladega. Everybody remembers the David and David show. The David slaying the Goliaths on that afternoon. Gilliland and Ragan. The narrative was just, I remember that race like yesterday was amazing to watch, and just the joy. Front row is a hard team to really put your finger on because they've been around forever. Their results don't really mirror their years of service, but you're rooting for them. And they haven't been in the playoffs since 16. They haven't won since 2016. Chris Buescher, as we talked about, took that gamble at Pocono. Ragan hasn't won since 13. So this is an organization and a driver that's dying to get back in there. You know, had really old used tires. That would have been it would have been really difficult to hold off Truex in the end. I understand that. And I'm trying to see both points, right? But he's going for it. And if Truex feels that, you know what, if he had the better car, and you know he had the better car, that's why he won the race. Why would he have to communicate that to demand that Ragan get out of the way? Pass him, for Christ's sakes. It's called racing. It's competition. So good for Ragan for saying at the end of the race, no, absolutely not. We were doing all we could do, he said. You never know, and that's true. If he just suddenly gets... I understand if you're a lap down, you're not racing for anything. You're going to get the lead lap back. You're going to get the free pass. The dying closing laps of this event? Fuck no. Doesn't make sense, man. But if he's on... And if he was on... So I'm defending this 100%. No one will like it. If you like it, I don't care if you don't like it. I'm defending it because he's going for the win. Again, he's going to get swallowed up if he makes the playoffs. It's nice to be there. It creates a little bit of drama. It makes it intriguing. It sets everything off pace because you're not expecting him to be in the playoff picture. If he's there, of course he's going to get swallowed up. We know that. I've stated that 3-4 times already. But it takes away a spot from another driver that's going to have to earn their way into this playoff. And it looks like this is going to be, the way it's looking right now, this championship battle is going to be determined on points. The tail end of it. Because only Penske drivers and Gibbs drivers seem to know how to win. Chase Elliott's in there as well. And he's going to probably even win a couple more races. That takes more wins away from drivers to qualify for the playoffs on victory. So points, it's going to come down to how important those are. David Ragan's not anywhere near this. He's in the top 30 and going to be in the top 30 to win, to advance. Ragan's not going to get in on points. So this was his one shot, really, to make the playoffs. He's going to have a good shot at Daytona coming up in July. But you get that out of the way, and it just creates that intrigue that it puts pressures on guys like Kyle Larson, Jimmy Johnson, maybe who are not running so well. They're not by any means secured into this playoff picture. Guys like Chris Buescher now are coming on really strong. That's why I'm saying this is the golden era for me, I think, of competition, because, you don't have a lot of the big names in there anymore. You do have these stars, and they're the stars of today, the face of the sport in the present. But when we had the big names like Gordon, Stewart, Kenseth, Carl Edwards, just to name some of those drivers, Johnson was in that mix as well. Jimmy Johnson isn't Jimmy Johnson anymore. You had really competitive drivers, and it seemed to be things are spread out. Now it seems to be predominantly Penske and Gibbs. But for a guy like David Ragan, this is an ultimate thrill if he can get in here. But ultimately, he does wind up 15th. Great run for him. Best finish of 2019. No tires in the closing laps. I just don't think with the worn tires he would have hung on. It's a gamble. He gets an A for effort, an A+ for effort. He was going for it. I'm going to give him all the credit in the universe for that. But in the end of it all, he might not have won. He might have got swallowed up by the leaders. 3 laps on worn tires at Charlotte, it's an eternity. But just the whole how it was handled, I think, is what really gives me a really sour taste in my mouth about it, and really makes me think that Truex Jr. is starting to get a bit of an ego. And it's a great story. No, mind you, it is a great story. He was not even... this guy looked like he was an afterthought for many years. He had okay runs with MWR. He ran up front of the Daytona 500 in 2010. He had flashes of brilliance. He won a race in that car. But he'll always be remembered, and I'll be synonymous with that debacle at Richmond that cost him maybe an opportunity. So in a way, maybe, like I said, he benefited the most from MWR's demise and not believing them, and went on to this. But who knows? Had that never happened, that spin never happened, MWR survives. He's still in that car. He may have never reached the heights he's reached. So don't forget, Truex. Just a word of the wise for you. Remember where you've been, pal. Just remember. And appreciate all you have now and the success you are and enjoying and have achieved at this point. And like I said, kudos to you. I really think the Martin Truex Jr. story is great, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's other competitors out there, given the opportunity you had, would probably be doing the same thing. Just be fortunate you were in one of the top tier teams in the sport. That's all I'm going to say about that. We're going to put that to bed right now. But still on the theme of him being a total dick, wreck Bailey Curry, man, on lap 252. He took out the coolest car in the field that night. But he did spin on 7. He did bring a caution on lap 75, and he rallies for the win. So I'll give him that. It was an interesting evening for Martin Truex Jr. He pisses some people off for wrecking poor Bailey Curry, and pisses other people off for thinking David Ragan is the drizzling shits and not good enough to win a race. So, and then you go out and you win the race. So in your face, right? Joey Logano's the runner-up here. His second run-up finish in the last three races. Last 5 races, excuse me. Run up in the last in 3 of the last 5 races, excuse me, there we go. Falls into second in the standings. He's maintaining his championship defense, and I think that's what's been really crucial. I said it about him. I think he's still the top tier driver at Penske, regardless that he's trailing Keselowski by those 2 wins. Keselowski's been either winning and he's looked dominant, and he's looked awful at times, let's be honest. But he hasn't won since Vegas, and I think Logano has to win another race soon. Pocono could be the place for him. Michigan, he's very good at these tracks. Sonoma, I think everybody's doing really well on the road courses now. It's not seen as a place for only ringers anymore. You know his record at Daytona, loves the place. He has to get that win, I think, to boost his confidence, to put him up there on par with Keselowski's teammate, and to put a little heat on the JGR group. But Logano is doing a fantastic job, I think, of representing the sport in defense of that championship, and I think it looks really damn good on him. Nice to see Joey Logano enjoying the success he's enjoying at this time. So Kyle Busch returns to the top 5. This is his first top 5 since Bristol, and I think it's hard to really factor that in because we were all so focused on that incredible consecutive top 10 streak that didn't quite reach 12. Shattered at Kansas, but through that streak, he wasn't attaining those top 5. They were legit top 10s. There was no top 5s in there from Bristol. So he leaves as the points leader. 29 laps led at Charlotte. Cannot repeat in the 600. Make it back-to-back 600. He leaves us the point leader, though. And the hazelnut spread car from the All-Star race was pretty cool. The white paint scheme. Had some issues with Ricky Stenhouse. They had a conversation at the end of the race. Those two had their run-ins a year ago, so that's nothing new. But Kyle Busch is just continuing his march to a second championship. And I think this would be a championship that would be legitimized if he can win it, competing the whole year. I know a lot of people still poo on the fact that he was the 2015 champion and missed the bulk of the races in 15. Good part of the race from Daytona to Charlotte. And a lot of people weren't happy with that. But yet he still won the championship. I think to validate that and to silence the critics, he doesn't need to. His record speaks for itself. But a second championship, I think that would go a long way for him. And Hendrick is still just flexing their muscle. A 4th place for Chase Elliott in this race. 4th consecutive top 5 finish. I said it. I think him and Truex Jr. have been, in the last 5 races, the best cars on the track, the 2 best drivers. He's now 3rd in the standings. I think he's in for an incredible summer. 43 laps led here at Charlotte. He's got Michigan coming up where he's very good. Had those legendary battles with Kyle Larson. Pocono, I think, is a good track for him. Chicago would be nice to see. He had some brilliant runs there in the fall, and I think Chase Elliott's going to do really well. But Hendrick too, so Bowman comes to play with a 7th-place run here. Can't make it 4. It's 4 consecutive top 10 finishes for him, but he can't make it 4 consecutive second place finishes. He's captivated the whole community here, the whole NASCAR community. Gets himself in the All-Star race. I think this run he's on is commanding respect. And I think a lot of people don't look at Alex Bowman as a rising star. I think he is kind of proving that point right now. He's been very good. Pocono was really good to him last year. Had a career run at Pocono to that point was a career run at Pocono. Can he pull some of that off this year? Well, it's a good chance. I mean, it could be a good track for him. Michigan's a good track for Hendrick in the past. Chicago's coming up. Daytona. Alex Bowman, I think he's going to make the playoff this year, and I think he's going to do it by virtue of a win. I don't think he's going to get in on the points. His standing is looking pretty good in the points, so he's looking like he's playoff bound, and it's just an incredible story, and Hendrick is really coming around. It's nice to see this team now finally flexing their muscle, as I said, and get up there and maybe challenge Penske, challenge JGR, create some new headlines, some headlines that people won't get sick of reading every week. Jimmy Johnson, 8th-place run here. Sort of a far cry from the Jimmy Johnson we used to see at Charlotte, who owned this place. Remember when Lowe's had the sponsor title to the track? This was his house, man. The car, the sponsor, just dominant at Charlotte at one point. But second consecutive top 10 finish for Johnson. And I said his future, we talked about it last week, is it in doubt? He says within the next 5 years he's going to call it a career. But the interesting thing is he going to call that a career in the 48 or somewhere else? Very interesting theory to think about, but it's nice to see him with consecutive top 10 finishes for the first time in a long time. And pole sitter, youngest pole sitter in 600 history, William Byron finishes 9th, leads 31 laps, and this is his second top 10 in the last 3 races. He was good at Texas as well. So it's good to see Byron getting his due as well, getting into the mix. It seems like Bowman and Elliott have been the best cars in Hendrick's stable over the last little bit, but it's nice to see Johnson and Byron making progress, and maybe they're figuring it out. Maybe they can swap setups one week with their teammates. Johnson and Byron can use some of the setups that Bowman and Elliott are using, and maybe that can lead to some well-deserved success for the other 2 drivers who are sort of the underneath guys right now at Hendrick. So Ricky Stenhouse finishes 5th. This is his first top 5 of 2009, and his first since the fall of Talladega of last year, 2018. It's a good run for him, and good progress, especially on an intermediate track. He has not been all that great on intermediate tracks. It seems to be Bristol and Talladega are his Daytona were his best tracks at this point. But he's criticized for erratically driving on this weekend here in this race. And I saw some of it, and I think a lot of people like to criticize Ricky Stenhouse Jr. They don't think he deserved to be in the Cup Series, that he's a Hendrick product Roush Fenway product, and he is a 2-time Xfinity champion, but I know people used to criticize him about not taking care of race cars. And, it is racing. I think Ricky Stenhouse is a grinder. He's one of those guys that gives it his all. He'll pump everything he has into the car, even if it's a lap down, 2 laps down, several laps down, or he's on the lead lap. I think Stenhouse wants to improve, and I think Roush Fenway Racing is sort of showing a little bit of improvement this year. Ryan Newman's had some top 10s lately, but I still think this team's very behind, and not only the Ford camp, but in general. I don't see them even in the top 5 anymore. You look at the list of organizations who used to put Roush Fenway, or it was simply known as Roush back then, in that tier of top tier teams. I don't even think they're in that top tier anymore, and they haven't been for quite some time. But this is a good finish. I did predict both cars would make the playoffs. They have some work to do. Newman would make it in if there were playoffs right in today, but not Stenhouse. Stenhouse is 22nd in points. He's got some work to do. He can do it, but there's not a lot of opportunity. I can't see him winning a race other than Daytona. I'm sorry. I know that might be harsh for some people to hear, but I just can't see the way the level of competition is and where he's in the points now. If this guy has any chance of getting in, this is a momentum builder. They could use this as a consistency builder, whatever they want to use it as. They can gamble somewhere else, but legitimately, they're circling Daytona the first week of July as their ticket to the playoffs, because that's legitimately the only way they're going to make the playoffs at this point. I just can't see this team going toe-to-toe, point for point with other teams that just seem to be running better than them right now. So he's got work to do. And I think Stenhouse Jr. is got to get back to that 2017 form he was in, because he was, nonetheless, it was the 2 wins at Daytona and Talladega, but he was on it. And he was looking like he was sort of going to break free there. And then last year, they just couldn't quite measure up. So Roush Fenway is one of those teams. I said, I don't think they're close to an elite status, but I think getting 1 or 2 cars into the playoffs, same thing like Front Row. I don't know if they're going to do much, but it's good for morale, and it keeps them relevant. And Chris Buescher, what a call out to him. I'm going to say he did a fabulous job at the Coke 600. Finished his 6th place. This is his 2nd consecutive top 10. So JTG Doherty's got something cooking here. He scrapes the wall in the early going in a race. Car, he's on pit road. Looks like the car's got some damage. Looks like this is over. He rallies here. So I think they're building something special here at JTG. There we go. Struggle. I can never not struggle with that. I got it right the first time. JTG Doherty. They're building something special here, and I think they went all in. They haven't won since 2016. He hasn't won since 2016, Buescher. JTG Doherty hasn't won since 2015, I believe. It's been a long time. The organization wants to get back in the winner's circle, and Buescher wants to get back in the winner's circle. And doesn't want to win, I think, in the fall. He wants to win on his own merit. And I think going younger, I said, initially I didn't think it was a great idea. I thought Buescher always was a great idea. But dumping Allmendinger for Preece, and I know Preece hasn't had the greatest rookie campaign. He's probably going to win the Rookie of the Year. But JTG Doherty's building this, not for this year, not for last year. They're building this for like 2021, 22. I think they could get better. An alliance with Hendrick would be ideal. If they're not already, I'm not sure who they're using. I think they were using RCR at one point. They could be using Hendrick Motors this year, but I think they're building this for long term, and I think the long term success is going to translate into just really, really good things for Chris Buescher and Ryan Preece in time. But I think Preece is still getting acclimated to the cars at the Cup level. It's really got a knack for those restrictor plate races. So I think JT Giora also is another group would love to make the playoffs, but 1 car, 2 cars. I think they're looking at Daytona too in July, coming up in a few weeks, as their prime opportunity to get themselves in to this championship picture. And you just never know, right? As David Ragan said, you never know. Corey LaJoie. I'm going to give a call out to Corey LaJoie here. And a lot of you will say, oh, it's a 12th place run. It's impressive to me, considering go fast. This is not a very, how'd you put it? That is what it is. Let's call for what it is. Let's be honest. Go Fast is not a good team. They're way behind on the technical side. The performance is never there. Matthew D. Benedetto left this team because he wanted to be with a quote-unquote stronger team. What is Matthew D. Benedetto really doing with Levine family, with the JGR alliance? Not a lot. Corey LaJoie, man, 32. I think a young guy like Corey LaJoie, I know he's got the pedigree. His father, Randy, was a 2-time Xfinity champion. We all know the story. But this is an amazing finish on an intermediate track for this team. They haven't had a lot of success on the intermediate tracks. So I think they're building something here. I know they're not likely. It's small building blocks. It's building towards eventually a second car for this team. They've been around a long time. He was 11th place a few weeks back at Talladega, but that's Talladega. to have this kind of finish at Charlotte and the longest race of the year, I'm giving a really big call out to Corey LaJoie and Go Fast. I think this team showed a lot of perseverance, and it's showing that given the right place, right time, they could be in contention as well. And I think this is another team that might want to circle Daytona in a few weeks. Get your career best, Corey LaJoie. Maybe make playoffs, but again, he's in that precarious position where this team has had a lot of issues with maintaining that status in the top 30. It could come back to bite them, but I think nonetheless, this is a good finish, good quality finish for Go Fast. This is something to be very proud of and look on as a step in the right direction for this team, and I hope they continue on the right path. And now we're going to swing to a little bit of Xfinity action. A couple big stories at an Xfinity Series race that I thought is worth mentioning and worth giving some spotlight to. Tyler Reddick. Let's just throw our hands up now and say, put this guy in a Cup car next year. He just completely dominates here. Cruise control. He wins. This is his second win of 2019. Comes at just from the last one, Talladega. Leads 110 laps. And look at them. Phenomenal record. He's just having one of the most solid seasons in Xfinity Series history, coming off a championship run. 2 wins, 9 top 5s, 10 top 10s in 11 races, 8 consecutive top 5s. This car is dialed in. RCR's got to find a way to get this guy in a Cup car. I know this is Xfinity, and he's turning a lot of heads, but they made the right call, RCR, getting this guy in the full. Now it's keeping him in the full because I think not only is he headed for Cup, he might not be in an RCR car, though. RCR is going to want to maintain that, and he could be the future. And we talked a lot about RCR and their slow cars, and this is built around the Dillon brothers. There's a very good nucleus for a good, strong, young team. As it seems to be, the sport is trending to the youth movement. Daniel Hemrick, Austin Dillon, and Tyler Reddick, really strong group of drivers, young guys. Reddick and Hemrick been teammates before with Brad Keselowski's truck team. They know each other quite well. Another season in Xfinity for Reddick. I don't know if that'd be wise. He seems like he's Cup ready. You saw what he did at Kansas in the Cup race a couple of weeks ago. He was very, very comfortable behind the wheel. It's sort of come a flash superstar out of nowhere. Wasn't he really on anyone's radar? He wins the championship. It's seen as a legit upset last year with Junior Motorsports, and here he is now defending that championship with honor and making a case to get RCR back into the championship picture in many, many years. They haven't been in this position. But can they get the sponsorship, and is it wise to move him to Cup so soon? I think he's Cup ready, but I think other teams should be on the watch for him as well. Hendrick would love to scoop this guy up. Ganassi, maybe Roush Fenway. But here's the issue. Teams that maybe are not performing so well pry him away from RCR. Could that be his detriment too? A red hot driver like Tyler Reddick, and you put him in Roush Fenway equipment, that could all come crashing down on him. And that's wasted potential. It's not saying RCR is running a hell of a lot better than Roush Fenway at this point on the Cup side, but RCR has that ability and that lasting power, that legacy, that this could be the second coming of RCR. What we've seen in the 90s with Dale Earnhardt. And RCR has never been successful really with the multi-car teams. I think they function a lot better as a single car team, or it's just one team will outperform the other. 31 had a lot of success as well with Jeff Burton when Jeff was there with Kevin Harvick in the 29, but I haven't seen that in a while. So I think to have that third car could be a hindrance. I know there's been a lot of talk about Daniel Hemrick maybe being axed after 1 year. I think that wouldn't be a great idea. I think you have to see what he has left. But if this Reddick continues this phenomenal run he's on, and he, let's say, wins the championship here, do you build that legacy and you go for that third championship in Xfinity, go to Cup in 2021? Reddick could become, like I said, a modern day Xfinity Series legend, and I think Christopher Bell is in that similar position. But these are two drivers, I think, that are out of they're just making a lot of headway, and I think Tyler Reddick is just phenomenal talent, and it's so good to see, and it's refreshing. This is a refreshing story in 2019. Jeffrey Earnhardt, how about legacy and pedigree? Hard fought third place finish here. His best finish in NASCAR of any of the top three tier series in 10 years on the sport. JGR and Earnhardt, this has worked out phenomenal, this partnership. Limited schedule with IK9 sponsoring most of the races. He's living up to that Earnhardt legacy, and I think he was on Earnhardt Jr.'s podcast, the Dale Jr. Download, recently. And that's what his goal, his whole main focus is to uphold that Earnhardt legacy. And Jeffrey Earnhardt is in a really good place right now. I don't know if he's ever going to make it the Cup with JGR. Could be a good part of an affiliate, but showing a lot of poise and really just nice to see. It's just fabulous. I think him doing well in the Xfinity Series has been a great story, and I hope he continues to get this opportunity and the rest of maybe he'll win a race this year. I think that would be huge for him and JGR, and I don't think there'd be anybody too upset about that. And it's nice to see a guy that worked so hard and struggled for so many years finally getting his just due. And it's good to see Jeffrey Earnhardt up front. And also some shout outs to Noah Gragson. He had a good run for JGR this week. And Jeb Burton. We don't talk a lot about Jeb, and Jeb's in a similar position. Just sort of cast it off, got moved into Cup fairly young in his career. Minimal success with BK Racing and some other lower tier teams, and it's good to see Jeb getting an opportunity to race some good equipment with Junior Motorsports, and who knows, that could lead to a full-time thing for him next year. It's nice to see that some of these guys that we're kind of seen as underneath guys doing really well lately, albeit the Xfinity Series, but it's good to see them amongst the top of the leaderboard. So the Indy 500 went down on Sunday, was the first race of the day. Third if you want to count Monaco, if you're really into F1. But Simon Pagenaud wins the 500, leads 116 laps, just jubilation in the winner's circle. This guy was on top of the universe. Well-deserved win for him. This is the 18th Indy 500 win for Roger Penske. They also rounded out the top five with Joseph Newgarden in fourth, Will Power, last year's winner, fifth, and former Indy 500 winners Alexander Rossi and Takuma Sato in third. So they were in contention for their second Indy 500 win within the last 4 years. That's pretty impressive. Good for Sato and Rossi. And you saw in the post-race interview, Rossi obviously deflated, thought he had a shot at this. And Simon Pagenaud, man, he's a big name in the IndyCar series, and the IndyCar is going through the same thing. A lot of the legends or veterans that shaped that series have either retired or moving on, and some of this young crop of guys like Newgarden, Pagenaud, they're sort of catching up on the all-time wins list. Ryan Hunter-Reay, some big names there. There's for the all-time wins. I know Scott Dixon's going to be doing this for a few more years, and he's sort of in a precarious position right now, but I think still one of the greatest of all time to ever strap on in the IndyCar series, to put on the helmet and strap in. And it's sort of having an off year, but it leads that door open for the rest of the field to make headwaves, and Simon Pagenaud, I think, is a really tremendous talent and sort of turning out to be a generational talent here in the IndyCar series. So Pocono, some drivers to keep your eyes on as they head up to the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania. That tricky triangle. ARCA race on Friday. Xfinity Series on Saturday. 3 days of racing action in Pennsylvania. Hope there's no rain. Rain seems to be a problem at this time of year for the racing action. It's hindered some of the racing action in years gone by. Remember that fog was wild, was it not, in August of 2016? Buescher. Maybe Chris Buescher will win again. Who knows? So Kyle Busch has 2 wins in the last 3 Pocono races. They're in July, granted, but 5 consecutive top 5s at Pocono. I think this is a driver that wasn't all that great there years ago, but he's been great everywhere lately. Continues to march through the record books. Closing in on 55. Wants to tie Rusty Wallace. would be a good place to do. Rusty had a lot of success at Pocono. Erik Jones, JGR. He's the last of the JGR cars looking for the win this year. His future seems to be in doubt, although it's not been made official, but JGR said they'd like to retain him, sign him to a long-term deal. Others will tell you he's keeping that seat warm for Christopher Bell next year, but he's got 2 top 5 finishes at Pocono. He was 3rd in June of 2017, and then he was 5th in July of 2018. This could be a place where he gets his first win. Ryan Blaney won his first race a few years back here. Lots of Jeremy Mayfield back in 98. So this is a place where first-time winners, Chris Buescher in 16. So first-time winners are frequent at Pocono. We saw that last year with Daniel Suarez almost winning. We're also going to keep your eye on him. Erik Jones, I think if he can win Pocono this weekend, it says a lot about his character. I think it would sort of silence any of that rumblings that he could be on his way out this year. It puts him now, all 4 cars would have won. There's that pressure. You won't be with that albatross around his neck that, hey, you're the only one of the JGR cars to yet to win this year. What's going on? You're basically running the same equipment. The other 3 guys are. Why aren't you winning? Erik Jones winning here, I think, would get him into the playoffs for the 2nd consecutive year. Does a lot for his career, and I think he's looked so good in the short period of time he's been here. I just don't know what JGR is going to do in the end with him, but a win here, it's not out of the question. And, of course, we have to talk about Martin Truex Jr. He's arguably the best driver on the circuit right now. 2 wins at Pocono, and all in June, too, 2014 and 2018. He's on a high from his big win at the Coke 600. He's had some very good races in the last couple weeks. Could make a trifecta, 3 wins at Pocono in June. That'd be pretty impressive. JGR knows how to win at Pocono in recent years, so keep your eyes on him. And Alex Bowman, I think his most recent streak of 3 consecutive runner-up finishes carry a lot of weight for him. This guy has a lot of swagger about him. He's got a lot of confidence, gusto going into this race. He's red hot. Hendrick is flexing their muscle. They're finding themselves. He finished 3rd in last July's race at Pocono, and the Hendrick cars, like I said, with the strength they've had lately. Remember Earnhardt Jr. sweeping the 88, swept boat races at Pocono in 2014. Maybe some of that little magical carryover for the 88 this time by, and gets Alex Bowman his first career win in the Cup Series and puts him into the playoffs for the 2nd consecutive year. And of course, I'm going to say this one. I'm getting a little tired of it, but Daniel Suarez, and I'll tell you why. He impressed the hell out of me last year. Runner-up finish to Kyle Busch in July of 2018. I think if he had a few more laps, would have got by him. First career win. Still think he would have been out at JGR, but he goes in. That's what really, I think, sold him to Stewart-Haas Racing, why he's in this 41 car, is that the potential here is enormous. And all 4 teams won in 2018 with Stewart-Haas Racing. Nobody's won yet this year. So just to think, if you can get your first career win at Pocono, where a lot of the drivers, like we said, Chris Buescher, Ryan Blaney, it's a hotbed for guys who want to get that first career win. For some reason, it seems to be the track that favors these drivers. This is huge. Not only is your first career win, will get you in your first career playoff appearance, it breaks the ice. Who's going to be the first Stewart-Haas race driver to win? You expect it to be Kevin Harvick, maybe even Clint Bowyer. But if Daniel Suarez can rise above his teammates and get to the winner's circle first, this says a lot about the decision to put him in this car, because there's a lot of second guessing. I'm not sure a lot of people are sold even on him yet. He's had tremendous runs. He's shown flashes of brilliance, but I still think there's that group of people that still believe that he's not going to amount to much here. He's here because of his heritage. That win in the 2016 Xfinity Series, winning that title, helped. But there's a lot of doubt surrounding him still, even at this point. He has not really measured up. But a win here puts all that to rest. Kind of gets everyone off the topic of what's going on at Stewart-Haas Racing. alleviate some of that stress for the time being. But I still think Daniel Suarez has a legitimate chance and has a tremendous opportunity to put himself in the record books, be the first Mexican-born driver to win at the Cup level. I think you could see that on Sunday afternoon at Pocono. So we're going to wave the checkered flag on this edition of Super Fantastic Above Average Racing Spectacular. And I just want to wish everybody a very good week, and I hope that we will enjoy the better weather coming. Hopefully it's a great summer of racing action, but whatever you're doing, I hope you enjoy that as well. And also in Canada, all the hype around Toronto and Golden State. I'll go back and I'll say, I predicted this. I predicted Toronto at the beginning of the year was going to win the NBA championship. Didn't think they were going to be playing the Warriors. I predicted the Clippers. I thought it was going to be Clippers-Toronto in the final. But it's pretty cool to see that Toronto is in the final and getting their just due, getting the recognition. Toronto Raptors have been around a very long time in Canada. And also want to congratulate all the runners who ran the Ottawa Marathon and Half Marathon and 10K and 5K this past weekend in Ottawa. I was a part of the marathon. It was a great event. Fantastic weather. I mean, it was just the thrill of a lifetime for me to run that event, and it was great. And unfortunately, there was some fatalities in that. So thoughts and prayers go out to the people and their families for those who were lost. And it was a tremendous event, and I'll be back again doing it in 2020. But I think I just want to congratulate everybody who laced up the old running shoes and tested their ability and mentally and physically at the auto race weekend last weekend, and ironically it was the same day of the Indy 500 and the Coke 600. So lots of racing action. This was on the course pavement road race, so that was really fun. So going back to this, I think what you'll see at Pocono is a lot of hard racing. Could produce a first-time winner. I'm just really looking forward to the summer and seeing how this works out for the playoffs, because you have such a tight cluster atop the standings, not only for who will get the top seed, but in the bottom, it looks like it's going to be a points race again, a points battle as it was several years ago. Last year we had a lot more winners, so this time we're going to see looks like a lot of drivers are going to have to get in on points, and I think that's going to create an interesting dynamic down the stretch in July into August, and then those last few weeks of August are going to be pretty tense for some of those drivers who want to make their way into the playoff picture in September. So that is going to do it for me. I just want to remind everyone always to be kind, lend a hand when you can, and always keep striving for the best, and just be a good neighbor, and to appreciate those people and make time for those people and make time for you. And you very well, that person I'm speaking of, she's a fantastic lady, and I always just want to say to her that she is brings a lot of joy to my life, and I'm very grateful that I've known her now for several months, and I think she's a fantastic lady, and I hope that I get to spend some more time with her and continue to get to know her better. And she's just an absolutely incredible individual, and that's just want to get that off my chest, I guess. So anyhow, this is Christopher, and you are listening to Super Fantastic Above Average Racing Spectacular. And until next week, I will see you.